Okay.
So welcome everyone to intro to Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. We're just loading up the presentation for Michelle. If you have just joined the session, we welcome any questions or thoughts you might have. You can put them in the chat box and we'll get to those. And also, it looks like most of you are muted, but if your microphone is not muted, go ahead and do that now. And then when we get to the Q&A portion, then we can open those up. So we just have a couple more folks joining, and then I'll just let Michelle start whenever she wants, and I'll just kind of help load in all the new ones. So thank you so much for joining us for the 2020 Business of Outdoor Recreation Summit. We are happy to have you.
Yeah, hi everybody. I am happy to be here to present to you today. I see some familiar names. I can't say I see some familiar faces, of course, but I see some familiar names here in our participant list. So it's nice to, yeah, there's a face, all right. Yeah, so it's nice to see you folks and see your names out there. Today, my goal is just to speak to you a bit about the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, a mouthful. SCORP is how we also call it, and introduce you to it and provide you some information there, as well as just information generally about how it links in with the Land and Water Conservation Fund and some of our other efforts statewide. Just to give you all a little information about myself for those who don't know me. My name is Michelle McNamee. I work for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks for the Parks Division. I'm the Outdoor Recreation Program Manager. So I've been in this position for about 6 months now. And basically my position leads the Land and Water Conservation Fund program, as well as efforts such as these, the SCORP, and takes the lead role on a lot of those pieces. So a lot of you may know Beth Shoemate. She is our Parks Division Administrator, and she and I and our planner, Cayenne, who couldn't be on this call today, have all worked really closely, both in getting this plan together with all the other stakeholders, of course, and then disseminating it now that we've got our SCORP done and distributed. So now we're just trying to talk to folks about it, what it means, how it can be useful to you, and how it ties in with various funding programs that hopefully you all are familiar with and interested in utilizing. So with that, what I'll do here is take you over to share my screen and our SCORP information. And please, at any time, I will try my best. I've got a lot going on this little laptop screen here, but I will try my best to answer any questions you want to throw into the chat at any time. If we have the raise hand feature, which maybe we do, but maybe we don't, I don't know. But I'll try my best just to answer questions. So please just type a chat and I'll keep an eye on it as best I can. And then, oh yeah, raise hand. If you go over to your participant window, there's a little icon on the right under the participants that say raise hand. So I can try to look at that as well. That works sometimes not so much, but I'll do my best to keep my eye on those two things and just call on questions as we go. And then, it may not take us the entire time. I don't want to read this whole document to you. So I just like to give you some information and hopefully we can interact a bit, and then we can be on our way. I know it's been probably a long day, especially if some of you have been listening to a lot of these great panels and podcasts and whatnot throughout the day. A lot of screen time, so understand if this is the last one of the day. So with that said, we'll get into, like I said, I really do want to touch on the Land and Water Conservation Program. That'll come out just a little later here and how it ties in. But just to start with SCORP. So for those who haven't seen it physically before, I mean, I guess you're still not seeing it physically, but here it is. the SCORP. It's actually for a planning document. I mean, look at that, razor thin for a government, well, government produced planning document. So, and it was really intended that way. The folks who are a big group of stakeholders who created this document really, really wanted it to not just sit on the shelf, to be something readable, something that you can just pick up, leaf through, and find the information you're looking for and utilize, you being communities, you being the public, you being land managers or folks who run nonprofits, things like that. So that's really the intent, is that it's just something usable and useful for anyone throughout the state. And as the title kind of suggests, it's a kind of a long title, the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. But as it suggests, it's really just our living document here at the state. We update it every 5 years. So this current SCORP was approved last year and enacted really this year. So it's 2020 to 2024 are the dates on this one, our current SCORP. And it's one that, like I said, every 5 years we do this. We work with a ton of stakeholders. If you're interested in finding the document, let me just share my screen generally. Well, let's take you to the web page here. So if you're interested in finding the document, you can go to stateparks.mt.gov. I believe you also have access to a one-pager overview, but the document itself lives here at stateparks.mt.gov. Link right on that main page to SCORP, and then this link right here to the PDF. Obviously, our opportunity for public comment is well over, as the document is now live. But we did go through an extensive process there. So, and here's what the document just looks like. And then if you leaf through the first few pages, I'll stop my share. If you leaf through those first few pages there on the State Parks website, find that document, you'll see a list of our primary stakeholders, of which there are, I think, about 20 some. But then several others besides those folks who are listed on the primary list that helped out with this. So it's really meant to be comprehensive, is truly correct there. Something where everybody's got a voice, everybody's got a stake in this statewide in terms of just recreation priorities, and hopefully something any sort of a rec planner or land manager someone like that can pick up and get some ideas for how projects could be prioritized, how what our state needs are in terms of recreation. So what we'll do is we'll run through these goals and talk about some ideas here, but then, like I said, please interact as we go. So let me take you, that said, I will remind myself to take you over to our presentation. So I will share my presentation screen. I'm someone who thinks as who talks as I think, so that's part of what. I'll take you over here to my presentation screen, which is this one. And I will start my slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so actually, no, I'm not going to do it that way. What we'll just do here is I will, sorry, as I stumble through to start, we'll just see, I'll pull it up like this. Let's see. Okay. So there is our main document. What I'm trying to do is, you know what I don't know how to do on here is actually read the notes section and and look at the slides while presenting on Zoom. So if you'll just bear with me, I will figure it out right here, right now for you, and then we'll be done. Hopefully you all can see that pretty well. At the end of the day, I don't want to be reading slides to you or you having to feel like you need to read them. So what's really useful is going through through the document or the one pager with me if you'd like. So anyway, but hopefully most of what I'm going to talk to you about is just relevant as I talk to you. So to start, here we go. Again, bear with me as I stumble to start. I promise I will get my legs under me right here. Again, we're going to skip. I already gave it that, and we'll move on to talking about the LWCF. So along with all this, so we talked a bit about what the plan is and what it does, but the LWCF piece comes in, and it's kind of like, well, where did this state comprehensive outdoor recreation plan come from? Why does it have such a funny name? And what does it have to do with the LWCF or any other grant program for that matter? And basically, the LWCF is the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Hopefully you've all heard of it recently. It's been in the news. It was through the Great American Outdoors Act, which was just passed in August, signed by our president in August. It was funded in perpetuity, this Land and Water Conservation Fund program, or LWCF. And this is a really important program here in Montana. What it does a bounty of things. It funds a lot of different pieces, but the piece we're going to talk about today of the LWCF program is the stateside program. It's the program where the states and their municipalities within states, so both the state and the municipalities, have a grant. It's a grant program, a 50-50 cost share grant program that's been in place since 1964. So it's one of these programs where we've had over 700 projects across our state that have LWCF funding, and it's funds to create and enhance outdoor recreation facilities and amenities. So example projects would be a municipal swimming pool or ballparks or you know, any sort of park improvement, that sort of thing. Again, outdoor rec being the key here. So that's what the LWCF program on the state side does, is it's that grant program, and it gives funds for that purpose of creating and enhancing outdoor recreation opportunities. But where this planning document comes in is that a requirement of the program is that each state, it's a national program and it's available to each state, but for each state to be eligible for the program, you have to have this SCORP document. So that's why I keep saying it's got a funky name, in that it's our national name. So every state that participates in this Land and Water Conservation Fund program, which the vast majority do, have this, have a statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan like Montana. So that's where that fits in. And for anyone who's wondering, the LWCF, that money does come from offshore drilling. And it's meant to protect lands and protect recreation in perpetuity. So it's sort of an offset of, you know, we do offshore drilling, but then it gives funds back for protecting and promoting outdoor recreation. And if anybody has questions on that, I'm happy to answer questions on the, I'm trying to see if I can see my, oh yeah, my participants, there you guys are. Okay, so if anybody ever has questions on that through this, this presentation, please feel free to ask about the LWCF program. I'm happy to answer how that works on the state side. Just as a plug for that program, we are going to have we being Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, we administer the grant program here in Montana. And so we're going to have that open starting in November 15th for applications. And then we're going to have rolling application deadlines. We got, because of the Great American Outdoors Act with LWCF funded in perpetuity, we're actually getting quite a bit more funding this year than we've ever gotten. 2.5 million-ish should be available to Montana. So we're allowing for a rolling application deadline because we're actually anticipating that we maybe won't get as much ask, especially in the first few months of 2021, that to even fully award our funds. So So we'll be asking for applications essentially throughout 2021. And I'm your contact for that. So please feel free to reach out to me personally if you've got questions or ideas for projects, things like that. All right, and then moving on here. So here are some examples. We just talked about this, but we've got, I believe all counties in Montana have some LWCF funding, have had some LWCF funding since 1964. So it's touched just a host of communities, been really a useful tool, this program. I mean, you can see here a list of some of the smaller communities in particular. You know, we're so used to thinking, of course, Whitefish and Gallatin County and the city of Billings utilize and have utilized the LWCF program, but also entities like Alberton, Deer Lodge, Wolf Point, all sorts of towns, Sydney, a lot of them. So it's one that has been a really, really helpful and has just hit a lot of people. And again, this SCORP is one of those requirements. So we'll move on. So this has taken us on to the planning process. Again, our focus with this was engaging stakeholders and just public participation. We at Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and one of our other major contributors, our other primaries on the state comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, along with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, we had the University of Montana, Libby Metcalf, as well as Rachel Schmidt over at the Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation. And then, like I said, a host of others. But one of the key goals of the advisory committee and of those folks in particular was just to engage as many people as possible and have it be that our goals were driven by what we heard from folks across the state, groups, organizations, towns, cities, counties across the state, rather than us driving those goals and recommendations. So there's just a host of facilitated discussions, a ton of outreach. I'm sure a lot of you were pulled into that if you've been a part of the Montana outdoor rec community for a number of years. And then there was a lot of data collected as well. You know, 5 years is a short time frame when you think about planning between these SCORP documents. So it's hard to, on every one, just gather data. But that was done as best it can be, and certainly is something we're looking to continue. And then we did, of course, host our public comment period last year. So that brings us to our goals. And we came out with 6 goals from the planning process that really, again, touch on everything we think and we heard that the state of Montana really wants to emphasize with regard to its outdoor recreation. And that's, first of all, so number 1, promote outdoor recreation opportunities for all Montanans. Number 2 is enhancing public access to the outdoor recreation resources and facilities. 3, supporting the economic vitality of communities and the state. 4 is improving quality of life through outdoor recreation experiences. 5 is adapting outdoor recreation for our changing environment. And then 6 is, of course, honoring Montana's outdoor legacy. So I think just by reading that, you can hear how many different pieces are hit on that, where recreation, as we know, this day and age, truly isn't just kids playing soccer or somebody going out on a hike, you know, on a trail. Outdoor recreation is intrinsic within each of our communities. It promotes more things than just recreation. It has interties with public health, with the economy, with you know, climate change and land conservation, things like that. So so again, these goals really get at that, and that's what we heard from across the state as we conducted all of our public outreach. So goal number 1 here, as I mentioned, was promoting outdoor recreation opportunities for all Montanans. And the big piece was that with this that we heard from around the state, and that I'm sure a lot of us has seen, is just that we need to invest, there's a need to invest statewide in our outdoor recreation opportunities that actually meet ADA accessibility standards. So allowing up recreation opportunities to be available to all Montanans and those who aren't as physically abled as others. That's definitely a need we have. And I think all of us can think of examples in our own community where we see that every day. Along with that, we need to, we need to promote some education, gather some more data, and an idea was to also, we need to do a better job at collecting information on where those folks with disabilities or those who don't have access, as good of access to the outdoors for whatever reason, are underserved, and in that way being able to address that. So that's a need we have that we as a state are looking towards. And keep in mind as I read through these goals, one thing I didn't mention from the outset was how these tie in with grant and funding opportunities. Like I said, with LWCF, yes, the SCORP is a necessary part of Montana having the LWCF program. We need it in order for our program to exist. But a big piece that's really important for folks, communities, anyone who's applying for a recreation grant, be it through the Recreational Trails Program, the Land and Water Conservation Fund program, or any of our recreation grant programs here at the state. A really important thing to think about as we talk through these goals is that if you can tie one or two or three or all of these goals into your grant application when it comes to the question, the inevitable question about why is this project needed? Who's going to benefit from this project? What is this project going to do? The more you can tie in these SCORP goals and actually, point to them and say, this is going to serve this need, this is going to address or improve ADA accessibility, this is going to address or improve recreation access in an underserved community, as outlined or as, as outlined in the SCORP in Goal 1. That's really going to benefit you when it comes to the application review. That shows that you've really done your homework on the planning effort, and that you've really thought long and hard with your partners and whoever is working on the project about not only why you think it's important for this project to exist, but how that fits in the overall state context, how that helps our overall state goals here that are listed. So again, yeah, that's just as somebody who reviews the grants, I must say that's something that's really helpful for us to see on a grant application. It really makes you more competitive. So you see here, we've got these recommendations along with each goal, and you can read through each and all of those, but you can just see a host of needs that our state has, and how you can tie different projects in with these, and how maybe you too can pull some of these for your own recreation planning in your own communities. And another thing I mentioned was that we're hopeful this type of a document can be a jumping off point for some communities or entities who are looking to do recreation planning. Because again, a big piece about getting funding, a big piece about making a successful project is having a plan and a context in which that fits. If a funder can see you've got a plan going forward, or if your project fits within a plan in a community, it really tends to be more successful, both in terms of getting funding, but just in terms of its longevity and it being there in perpetuity. Okay. Goal 2 is enhancing that public access to outdoor recreation resources and facilities. So this is one that really gets at our need for data collection across the state. This is something that came up quite a bit, especially certainly from our agencies, and something that University of Montana and again, our Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation have been working on over the last few years. But data collection, it's a big effort. It's not always the most, people say it's not always the most sexy effort. It's not always the most shiny, most exciting thing to fund or to undertake, but it's really important in understanding our challenges and the opportunities that we have in terms of what are visitors doing, what are folks Montanans doing on our lands, and where are our needs. So we're seeing this need to collect data and to collaborate across agencies and across groups to collect data. So it may be that your organization actually does collect a certain type of data in your communities or in your community, and that other folks just don't know about it. And so again, getting to that point is really helpful. And then also, of course, collaborating on different issues across boundaries. The biggest thing, one of the biggest takeaways we had on all of this was collaborating across boundaries and not working within our silos is what's really important. So reaching out, making those partnerships, and doing that extra legwork to involve as many folks as possible when talking about public land access or water access. And then in particular, and the reason for this whole conference and for the Business of Outdoor Recreation Summit is improving and expanding, particularly front country outdoor recreation opportunities. I think Montana, we're really known for our backcountry and for all of our federal public lands, but really making sure that we're having as big of a focus and we're known as just as much for those great recreation opportunities that we have in our cities and counties and that we have in our towns and municipalities. Goal 3, this one, if you've ever heard Rachel Schmidt present on her the economics of outdoor recreation, you've had a treat, and I highly recommend hearing from her on that subject if you haven't yet. This goal 3 gets at that, supporting the economic vitality of communities in the state. I'm not going to try to rattle off all this stuff. Rachel can just rattle off the top of her head. But we've all heard, hopefully from her from that presentation, or I'm sure you've heard nationally about how in recent years, what a big economy we're realizing that outdoor recreation is and can be for communities, how it can be another aspect of tourism, or it can be another aspect of revitalization to a community that maybe has seen a downturn in some other industry. So we're just seeing a need, and we're trying to address and focus on the need for continued investment in those outdoor recreation industries, and helping communities understand how it can all work for them. I think a lot of communities think, well, I don't know if outdoor recreation is really for our community or something. We're not next to Glacier National Park, or we're not, we don't have the South Hills and Helena right behind us. So maybe outdoor recreation isn't really something that we can or should or could promote, but really helping all those communities, rural communities in particular, understand how they can utilize outdoor recreation just as much as some of our, more mountain communities or communities who we already know utilize outdoor recreation to bolster their economies. Along with that is diversifying our funding sources. I'm sure a lot of you who are on this call here today or this discussion know very much, for example, our reliance as a state when it comes to trail maintenance on the Recreational Trails Program, our federally funded RTP. And it's just tough to fit all of our recreation and all of our trail maintenance needs into one program, especially one federal program that we don't really even have control over. So being able to develop strategies, and we've already seen some really great progress with regard to our new state trail program that we're going to have this year. We'll have a new state funded program that came through Senate Bill 24 in the 2019 legislature. That is example of how we need to go about and different ways we can go about diversifying and getting more funding for outdoor recreation that isn't just, you know, one grant program that could or couldn't go away, but looking for different ways to do that. And so we also have realized a need that communities and other folks have, which is better understanding what the grant opportunities all are that are out there, and more importantly, the mechanisms behind how to manage a grant, how to utilize the grants. Because it's one thing to know that they're there. It's another thing to be able to manage that grant and to manage that project and to understand how to put together a competitive application for this program versus that program with different requirements and a different project type versus that program. So it really takes a lot of finesse, and we're hoping as a state, and we've identified that we have a need as a state to help our communities and our organizations and our clubs and nonprofits better with that process, and that would really help you all utilize our grant funds, as well as help us get some more folks in the door who could use our funding and who could use this new these outdoor recreation funds. Goal 4 here is improving quality of life through outdoor recreation experiences. So this one is really where we heard about from folks about engaging seniors, youth, those who are health challenged in outdoor recreation. So this public health aspect of outdoor recreation that I think we can all stand to say since COVID, this whole COVID-19 pandemic started back in March, or I should say hit us back in March of 2019 or of 2020. We all, I think, are understanding more and more and more how important and how necessary, especially front country, you know, close out your back door, outdoor recreation is to be able to keep a healthy mind, exercise physically. And so we've seen just more needs for partnering with education providers, not only just for youth, but for older folks and just those who, those again, who are underserved, who just don't have, you know, a background in going out and exercising. And then just promoting those health benefits too. So working better with the healthcare industry. We've seen that a little bit starting to crop up with programs like Walk with the Doctor and things like that. But being able to, I think both industries could stand to utilize and could work together better to promote their own programming and use of facilities. So we're starting to see that, but just a need we have to continue on. Goal 5 gets at a changing environment. So that's sort of this, this acknowledgement that we do have climate change taking place. We do have, I mean, not just climate change in that our environment's changing both physically in terms of the human environment and the amount of folks, especially again now, who are coming into Montana. Along with that, we also have, again, climate change and the fact that our environment is changing in terms of biologically and in terms of how much weather we're getting, different types of weather, different types of water, all that sort of stuff. Our landscape is slowly changing. So just being able to understand that and better communicate about that between folks, being able to develop better preparedness plans based on our actual hazards, our natural resource hazards. That was that was a goal that you don't necessarily think of when you think of outdoor recreation, but something that we saw as a state that we could do a better job of. Along with that is being able to put outdoor recreation planning in with land use planning, in with community planning efforts. So again, promoting sustainable building and development for our outdoor rec infrastructure. We haven't traditionally always considered that in the past. And then encouraging outdoor recreation, specific climate projections and information for the outdoor recreation industry. So again, just getting at that piece of understanding that being able to be adaptable and being able to be resilient within our communities and using recreation to do that. One example that I can think of off the top of my head is that actually, you know, some communities around the state of Montana are getting updated flood maps, for example, or floodplain maps. And a lot of times that'll show an area that is at risk for flooding that, you know, maybe the town or community didn't know about. And, you know, what that also does is it kind of restricts the type of development that could or should be there. You know, you probably don't want to put homes there, even if you raise them up. It's still a floodplain, right? So a lot of times those areas are really best used for outdoor recreation. And so that's a place where I've started to have some discussions with communities to say, hey, you know, I know you've got this whole area that, you know, it's in a floodplain, you've got some homes there, but those homes, maybe their value has gone down quite significantly, or they've even been flooded out, and you're looking to remove them, or to, you know, move the homeowners and sort of let that area go back to open space. And then that can tie in really nicely with outdoor recreation. So just looking at things like that is something that we as a state are trying to do better, and that's one of our goals, to just be able to make those connections when we can. And then finally, our last goal is to honor our outdoor legacy. This is a big one. You know, it's saved for last here, but I always think it's kind of the biggest one for me and for from our planning effort. So it's not only thinking about the conservation side of conserving our lands and our natural resources. You know, I think a lot of us can think really, you know, our minds may first think about, well, you know, loving our lands to death, right? We've actually, you know, again, with the amount of visitation that's gone up in our state this year with COVID and people needing to get outside, we've heard a lot about loving our lands to death in certain national parks, Glacier and Yellowstone, but also certain state parks that get a ton of use versus those others that maybe don't see as much. And do we really need to be promoting outdoor recreation in areas like Glacier or some of our more busy state parks where honestly they could probably stand to have some visitation pulled away and have that visitation spread out to other areas? So that's where we talk about the balance of use with outdoor, with ecological functions and fish and wildlife and habitats. So how do we think really strategically about not just putting outdoor recreation and promoting folks to be going any which way, but being able to make sure we're looking at a really balanced approach so that people are using the land in concert with our ecological needs around the state. So, you know, it's something we've started, certainly. I mean, we are fish, wildlife, and parks here, but again, that can very much be strengthened. And then a big piece of this too is strengthening connection with tribes through outdoor recreation. This is something that's really been difficult in the past. It's always tough to work. I mean, it's hard for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to even work with, you know, DNRC, different state agencies, let alone to work across cultures with tribes. But it's really a really useful effort to undertake, and it's something that deserves the time and the effort that it sometimes requires. So we need to do a better job, and we need to reach out more and get some more tribal voices integrated in our outdoor recreation. I mean, we just had Indigenous Peoples Day yesterday, so I think right on our minds is the fact that I'd say we're really lucky in Montana, lucky to have still, I think, a pretty strong tie between tribes and the land on which they originally existed, or existed before our community got here and all that, before 1492. We're lucky to have that resource, and so being able to celebrate that and pull that back in to a lot of our outdoor recreation in particular, I think is a really, it's a unique opportunity that we in Montana have that maybe not all other states do. So it's a really neat thing that we can do here. And then just being more collaborative and actually developing strategies with tribal members to share the cultural heritage, to share our values, to share the historic sites. And then, of course, the protect and preservation of these historic sites and resources. So just identifying what those are, where they are, and how we can best protect them, how we can educate about them, have folks, you know, go and check them out and be able to be there and be a part of whatever the cultural resource is or the area or what have you, but be able to protect them as well. So that is it in a nutshell, I say. But those are our goals there. Aside from that, we just have some other small features within the report itself. These did you knows are really, they're fun little facts. And then there's just a ton of features about different projects that communities have undertaken. Really tried to be strategic about including different communities, different project types, and highlighting those. So it's just kind of fun to flip through and take a look at some different types of events and different types of trail systems or different types of projects that other communities have done that really showcase a goal or a couple goals of the SCORP. And then, yeah, we're just, you know, always looking ahead here. You know, it's funny to think, like I said, our next our next SCORP document is going to be, we're going to have it written by 2024 or 2025, I guess. So actually our next effort and planning efforts will probably start in a couple years here, probably around 2023, which, you know, isn't too far away. So we're always looking ahead. And again, like I said, data collection, all these different partnerships, we're going to try to continue them and continue these conversations. So we're not just planning, you know, a couple years here and then nothing, and then planning a couple years here, but rather continuing these dialogues, which is a part of what I'm here doing with you all today. Okay. So I just took everybody off of the presentation. Yes. Yep. So just to wrap up, you know, 4:45, so plenty of time for questions if anybody wants, but to wrap up, I want to thank you all again for listening and hearing about our SCORP. We're really proud of it. We being not only Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, but all those other stakeholders who worked on it. This is a document that had really been parsed down to be hopefully something useful, usable, and approachable to communities and organizations who are looking to undertake planning and to really understand our outdoor recreation needs as a state. Again, it'll be really useful if and when you're planning to apply for a grant through Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. So again, some of our grant programs at FWP and our outdoor recreation programs are the Land and Water Conservation Fund, Recreational Trails Program. And then now, like I said, we've got a couple new state programs. The Montana Trail Stewardship Grant Program is the new one. That's our state program that's going to look a lot like RTP, but it has that funding coming from Senate Bill 24 from our RAISE and our light motor vehicle registration fee. So that's those three in particular. The more you can sort of work in, and I think again, with this being so overarching, there are a lot of pieces, recommendations, goals that you can really work in with your projects into your applications. So that way you can really strengthen that, but also you can get a bigger picture as to where your project may fit within the state. And I'd say with that, that's all I have for folks. If anybody's got any questions, feel free. I think you can unmute yourselves, or feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like. I don't see anything in the chat or anybody's hand raised, but let me know if you've got questions about the SCORP or any of our outdoor recreation grant programs. I'm happy to answer those.
This contract will probably go, you know, until next year sometime.
Yeah.
As the city gradually tries to figure out ways to reduce, water consumption, but particularly drinking water.
Mhm.
So kind of an interesting project, and I'm learning a lot along the way.
Hey, Greg.
Hold on. Yeah, we might have to have folks.
Well, if we go for sure before we
Good,
get out.
everyone.
I was gonna say, wait, yeah. I think what we'll do is we'll.
Oh, hold on. Ah,
Hi. Okay.
sorry.
No worries. You know what we'll do? I saw that Beth, Shoemate, was trying to talk. So again, Beth Shoemates is the Parks Division Administrator. And, I'd like to hear from her if she wants to give a couple words here. Beth, I see you're muted. You wanna, I don't know if she can unmute or not. There we go. Hi, Beth, are you there?
She sounds like she's having fun wherever she is.
She's at a soccer game.
Okay.
She's at her son's playoff soccer game, so
Okay.
that's why she couldn't be a part of the actual presentation. But Beth, are you there? Can you hear us?
So, you guys are able to see this today. Gosh.
Beth, you're really quiet. Can you talk a little louder?
I'll take video if so. I know, all day. But
Okay. Beth, can you hear us? Okay, I don't think we can really hear Beth. If again, if you want to go to your raise hand, remember, go to that participants list, and if you want to click raise hand or type a question in the chat, then I can take questions that way. That way we'll avoid the messy confusion that just happened on this last one. Questions or comments, go ahead and raise your hand or type something in the chat. Okay, well, I'm happy to stay on for a little bit longer. So I'll just stay on a bit longer if folks want. And then anyone else who, if you don't have a question or anything like that, again, thank you for listening in and feel free to get a hold of me. My email is on the LWCF part of the State Parks website. So if you go to stateparks.mt.gov and then /recreation, you'll see different tabs for our grant programs. And then under LWCF, down at the bottom, you'll see my name and all my contact information. It's michelle.mcnamee@mt.gov. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me now. With COVID, I'm not really in the office. So if you just email me, I can always set up a time to call and chat about anything, or just email chat too. So feel free to contact me that way. Otherwise, I'll stay here a couple minutes if anybody's got specific questions or wants to chime in. I see we've got a really nice comment here from Brad Duns about bike packing routes, successfully collaborating with the Navajo Nation on access to Navajo land for the Wild West route. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
And if there are any other questions, as you're starting to offload or offload this session. If you were later coming in, we are recording this session and we will post it back up on Whova with a link tomorrow, likely at the latest. It just takes a while to do that. So if you were late coming in, we'll have that up.
Yeah, and thanks to you, Sheena, and all the other folks at the Business Outdoor Recreation Summit for hosting. This has been great.
Well, we're happy to have you. Well, it's up to you. I
Awesome.
can be open for a couple minutes, or we can go ahead and close it and folks can reach out to you individually.
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, no one's been reaching. Yep. Yeah, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you virtually tomorrow.
Yep. All right, bye everybody.